I was able to stack up 10,964 points for Damage Fireflies during a night raid on Riventides. For my equipment, I brought in an Osprey with 4 stacks of ammo, a Jupiter with 7 stacks of ammo, 6 stacks of adrenaline shots, even though I literally only used a single adrenaline shot. I thought I was going to be running around a lot more than I actually did. A light shield and a medium shield, 2 stacks of herbal bandages, 2 stacks of shield rechargers, 3 wolf packs, which are not necessary. I just brought them in case I accidentally aggroed a vaporizer or a rocketeer, snap hook, photoelectric cloak, and zip lines. Now, once you spawn in, you're going to want to head for essentially the middle of the map. There is a tall lookout tower that is great for seeing a lot of these firefly spawns. The fireflies will spawn essentially in every major area on this map. You will have one that spawns by the hotel, one that spawns by the Port Authority building, one that spawns in the stacking yard, and one that spawns in the customs house. Now, each of these spawns come with a different set of enemies. When you aggro the fireflies, in most cases, you're pulling with them a couple of wasps and a hornet. So you're going to get swarmed really quick, and the ranged weapons are really great for keeping enemies back and eliminating them before they can get close. As you are running towards the middle of the map, I do recommend looking around and aggroing as many fireflies as you can on the way. You want to start racking up score as quickly as possible, so see if you can't pick some off on the way in. What I recommend doing if you're running with the same setup is use the Osprey to start the fight and then use the Jupiter to essentially deal the final shot. Doing it this way lets you kind of balance out the durability burn for both of the weapons, making sure that they will last you the full entire round. Now, I do recommend that for the Fireflies and the Hornets, you do use the Jupiter more often than not. The Jupiter will just pierce through the armor on both of those enemies a lot faster than the Osprey will. The Osprey is great for handling them, but it just doesn't do a ton of damage, and if they're up close and in your face, it can be a very dangerous and tricky situation to be in. So rely on the Jupiter to do a lot of that big damage to take out the enemies when they are getting close to you. Otherwise, you can use the Osprey to just deal chip damage to them as they're trying to fly their way over to you. Now, as far as I could tell throughout this match, you do want to eliminate every enemy that they spawn in with. It does seem like if you just pick off the Firefly and then let the entire enemy stack roam around after that without taking them down, the Fireflies don't spawn back in, or at least spawn back in a much slower pace. Taking out the full squad of enemies will let them respawn in just about 2 minutes, somewhere in that range. The other great part about using the Osprey for this challenge is there really isn't anywhere on this map that they're going to be able to hide from you. The Osprey has such phenomenal range that allows you to poke at enemies from anywhere on the map and pull them over to you. Not only that, but if you can get a couple of shots in with the Osprey, it makes it a lot easier for the Jupiter to take it out in a single shot. There's a good balancing act in using both of the weapons to eliminate the stacks of enemies that you're going to be aggroing. Now, in terms of the priority for which enemies you want to focus on first, I recommend the Firefly first for 2 specific reasons. It just ensures that you are able to take the enemy out before other players on the map have an opportunity to deal any sort of damage to it and take away your trials points. After you've eliminated the Firefly, I recommend focusing on the Hornet and then the Wasps. The Wasps seem to take the longest to aggro over to you in most cases, but the Hornet and the Fireflies are a lot more eager to close the distance on you once you've started the fight. Now, once you've settled in on the top of the building, all you want to do is essentially listen for spawns on the map and rotate around on top of the tower to see what types of spawns come in. Even if the group isn't a Firefly related group, I do recommend using the Osprey to just pick them off and take them out. In general, it seems to help accelerate the Firefly respawn times. Now, for the Firefly that you will find at the hotel, at least in this game, one of the Fireflies was patrolling with a vaporizer, and it can feel a little bit sketchy to try and aggro a Firefly when you're going to also aggro a vaporizer. But as long as you're far enough away, the vaporizer will essentially de-aggro before it gets close enough to you. What I recommend that you do with the shots on the Firefly is to just space them out. Do the first initial shot to deal damage, and then let the Firefly start to close the distance before you do another shot. Multiple shots on the Firefly while it's still close to the vaporizer will aggro the vaporizer a little bit stronger, and you might have to deal with the vaporizer. If you do end up pulling a vaporizer to you, what I recommend you do is hit it with a Jupiter until it uses its shield, and then once the shield goes away, just throw a wolf pack to take it out. As long as the wolf pack doesn't split off to eliminate other enemies, you'll take that vaporizer out in a single wolf pack and you can go on about your way. Now, the other RNG component that you're going to have to figure out on your own in your game is when the turbines spawn in. I got fairly lucky in this round. There was only one turbine that spawned in, and it was relatively out of my way. So I didn't have to worry about aggroing any enemies that were close to it. I could just shoot everywhere else and it wouldn't get aggroed by me. This let me just play pretty safe, but in your game, you might need to rotate depending on where the turbines land. Now from here, all you simply do is just continue to rotate in a circle, pick off the fireflies as they spawn in, eliminate the full groups that come with them, and stack up your trial score. Now, if Riven Tides is a little bit too sketchy for you because you either don't have a Jupiter or there's just too many enemies for you to deal with whatever setup you have, I achieved an identical score to this score, literally only separated by like 64 points between the two during a day raid on Bluegate. Now for Bluegate, the strategy is identical to what the Riventide strategy is. What you want to do when you spawn in is head for the Overlook Airshaft and then use a zip line or a snap hook to get on the roof of that building. From this location, you can see nearly every Firefly spawn location and pick them off with an Osprey and a Jupiter at range. Now on Bluegate, the Fireflies are going to spawn in a few different locations. They will spawn in the ruined homestead near the ancient fort, near the checkpoint entrance by the bastion or the bombardier, to the east of the Overlook Airshaft, at the warehouse complex or the field just to the east side of the warehouse complex, and sometimes at Pilgrim's Peak. Exactly like the Rivenside strategy, all you want to do is essentially rotate in a circle, use the Osprey to figure out where the Fireflies are, and pick them off at range. You also want to eliminate all the other flying arc enemies that are spawned in with them to make sure that you get the respawn timer started. I can't say whether or not the snitches actually count for that as well, so I was taking them out just to be safe. Now beyond that, there isn't a ton more to this challenge. Once you've stacked up enough points and you're happy with your score, head back to Speranza, collect any loot if you haven't already, and watch your score fly up the leaderboard. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.